Hello, everyone. Very good morning to all of you. Thank you for those of you who are dialing in very promptly this morning. My name is Karina Kwok. I'm the Head of Professional Practices at IHRP. And we are, very proud to bring to you this exclusive webinar to discuss ROI methodology. And this is exclusive to our community of now we've got over 3,700 of you across the different levels of CA, CP, SP, and MP. So welcome to all of you. And so what my team and I do actually is to come up to curate different programs across the year to provide you with updated HR trends and information on various HR topics. And so it is our pleasure today to co-host with Aartha and the ROI Institute to bring you this webinar on ROI methodology. Now, in the past few years, whenever we speak to senior HR professionals and business leaders to ask them what are some of the gaps that, perhaps they're seeing in HR teams so they can help build that into our learning curriculum. One of the top things that they've always identified is that they see a gap in HR's lack of confidence and credibility when it comes to business and financial acumen. And so that's something that, we're focused on this year to bring you a learning journey on business and financial acumen. So I'm currently working with one of our IHRP master professionals, Mr. Robert Chong, who's the Chief Corporate and HR Officer at Sembcorp Industries Limited, and a group of senior HR leaders from Twitter, UPS, Singtel, Edutex, Samsung, Wargaming, and Infineon to actually develop this learning journey. So this is one of the first installments of our business and financial acumen learning journey programming. Before I start to introduce the speakers, let me quickly cover some webinar ground rules. So, as you can see there on the slide, just bear with me as I quickly highlight this. You will be muted for the duration of the webinar, but you can see at the bottom of the console, you do have the ability to chat with each other as well as to pose questions. And if you're posing a question to a particular panelist, just so that it's easier for us to identify that and can get our panelists or speakers to respond, if you can just put their name and then indicate the question, that'd be really helpful. And we will, at the end of the webinar, flash a QR code so that you can also provide us with feedback on the webinar and tell us what other topics you'd like us to cover. And then lastly, we always get this question, will the webinar be recorded? Yes, we've gotten permission from the speakers to actually record this, but just give us about a week or so to send it through in a follow-up email because we do need to clear some of the corporate comms and so on. Okay, now let me really quickly get started on introducing our illustrious group of speakers. The first one up that I'm introducing is none other than my boss, Mayan Parek, CEO of IHRP. Mayan has over 30 years of experience in regional, global HR and general management roles. I think he's even had a business role out in India in one of his past experiences prior to joining IHRP. And he's actually led initiatives in MNCs spanning across 3 continents, 30 countries, and have led teams of approximately 9,000 people. So leading IHRP is a small, entity compared to what he's experienced previously. Next up, we have Zurong. He's the head of HR for APAC Twitter, and he's had, a lot of different experiences supporting, corporate functions across financial, oil and gas, FMG, tech industries. He's kind of had global, regional, as well as country HR roles in the Philippines and Singapore. He is currently the looking after Asia Pac for Twitter, responsible for the development of HR and strategic future talent agenda that will advance Twitter's institutional purpose. Prior to Twitter, Zurong was also director of HR at Unilever and had started his career with Temasek Holdings. So welcome, Zurong. Next, we have Tanny Eo, who is a VP of HR at UPS Asia Pacific. She's based in Singapore, but responsible for the overall human capital strategy for close to 13,000 employees across more than 40 countries and territories in the region. She's been quite a long timer at UPS, have joined them since 2001, and in addition to APAC, have also had the experience to serve as HR Director in Belgium for UPS Europe. She's recently led development and implementation of UPS's Asia Pacific Vision Map to shape the company's culture. So hopefully we can hear some sharing from her on that. Next, we have Charlton Ong. Welcome, Charlton. Looking very dapper there. He is the VP of HR for Singtel's Group Enterprise Global Business Unit, as well as the lead for Singapore's operations. I think prior to Singtel, Charlton also has got overseas experience where he was based in Shanghai for a few years, where he worked for Honeywell, and also previously he was VP of HR for HP Hewlett Packard's Enterprise Services Asia Pacific. Give a good wave, Charlton. All right. Next, we have Kelvin Quack, who is the director at Editex. Kelvin has more than 15 years of experience in consulting and training for multinational organizations such as Extra Space, Carrier Logistics, Carrier Freight, GNC Malaysia, Resorts World, Genting, Gucci. Wow, it's a very long list. So, really great to have you here, Kelvin. And currently he's a growth consultant, so he's got quite a bit of experience also consulting for small, medium enterprise clients currently, and focused on HR, operation, and service excellence. So welcome, Kelvin. All right, getting to my last slide here. Last but not least, let me introduce our wonderful partner from Aartha and ROI Institute. We have Anindita Sharma. She's the founding director of Aartha and the regional director for ROI Institute. She comes to us with more than 20 years of professional experience in Asia and the US across multidisciplinary areas such as initiative design, business performance, relationship management, and consulting, mainly to help organizations achieve measurable impacts from their programs and initiatives. So it's great to have her here today to share with us the ROI methodology and share with us through case sharing how HR can better equip themselves with knowledge and what to kind of put in mind when they bring up the business case towards ROI. All right. Without further ado, I guess I will pass it on to Aninda to take us through the presentation.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Karina. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I want to engage all of you in the first conversation here. I see so many of you have joined today. We really appreciate this. But to begin this conversation about impact and ROI, we would love for you to begin with a different thought. And please, could you think back maybe 3-5 years and think back to that moment when you worked on something which was very important to you, maybe an initiative or a project which was very strategic, very important, quite special, complicated, took a lot of time. Please think back to it. Take a moment. Let's take a moment. Think back for that particular example. Do you have something in mind? If you do, hold on to the thought. Let me add to it. Imagine you've launched this program. Imagine that you are walking down the hallway and you run into a very senior leader, somebody that you really respect. And they say to you, hey, I'm hearing really good things about the work, the program that you're doing, your team is doing. Can you show me the kind of business impact it had? Can you show me the business impact it had? And so my question here is, if this question, how confidently could you quantify the business impact for your stakeholders? With this, let's launch our first poll. Have a think. How confidently for that program could you do this? Very, somewhat, or not very? Okay, I think we are beginning to get a sense of where this is going. This is great. So what we notice here is what we would notice anywhere globally, that the vast majority of us know something about how we might answer the question. Some of us are not very confident, and this is very typical because a toolkit helps here. And I'm very heartened to see that at least 10% are able to show value for the work they've done. This is great. Okay, so as we think about today, we are really asking this question. When somebody comes to us and asks, how will you show value? How do we get started? What exactly is the path for us to get there? And in our discussions today, sorry, I just want to get this poll thing stopped. Here we go. Okay, great. In our discussions today with the panel, I would love for you to watch out for 4 themes that keep coming up. The first theme to look out for is, as HR professionals, what are some things we can take away from the ROI methodology? First. The second theme is measurement and evaluation. How can it help us not just show the value of one program, but really to show the value of human capital as a function? So it's a strategic question. The third point is, what kind of things go into building people programs that are very aligned with the business and create big impact? So please watch out for these themes. And the fourth one, very important, is by using all of these features and ideas, how do we continue to evolve as business partners, credible, consultative partners to our stakeholders? These will be the themes that we will talk about today. In doing so, we will use a case, and our case is about culture change and engagement, but really it's about behavior change. And I would love now to invite our first panelist, Charlton, to answer the first question. This case, Charlton, is about engagement and culture change. In your experience, what makes these successful? What can you share with us?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Dita, and good morning, everyone. I hope you guys can hear me okay. The example I'd like to share is the Singtel learning platform. It's called Curious, and some of you might have heard when my other colleagues presented in previous webinars or presentations. I thought that I'll choose it again because it's really important. Whilst it was launched 2 years ago, it was clear, or it is clear to me, that it was an initiative that could potentially affect business performance, business impact, and ROI, as well as HR's credibility, right? It could, if it doesn't turn out well with the launch, it could really hurt HR's credibility here. And so we started planning for this with the end in mind, or in other words, the problem statement. What are we solving? What were we trying to solve? We wanted to move away from the traditional learning techniques to one that allows our employees to learn on demand at anywhere, anytime, given the fast-moving digital environment around us. And if I take reference from the ROI methodology that I think Dita will share with you in a while, in the evaluations planning stage, my peers and I scoped out the objectives and involved business representatives to solicit their inputs, to the criteria tender process before opening it up for bids. We also crowdsourced for our employees for their vision, for their needs of such a platform. And even when we were analyzing proposals and seeing live system demonstrations from various bidders, we created employee focus groups to actually help us in the analysis of the proposals together with HR, procurement, and our business reps. Actually, the name Curious was also a result of inputs from our employees. The perception of feeling and feel of empowerment is hugely important for its success in the future. And in optimizing results, the importance of ROI was clear for us and the business. After all, the entire spend wasn't inexpensive, and it was quite an investment from the company. And so numerical targets were obviously set to ensure ROI, an increase in learning places, But non-numerical part of the of the equation and a more abstract part is just as important. For example, employee engagement, the process of empowering our employee, listening to them and getting back to them. Culture transformation, what are some of the modern stick and carrot approaches to encourage our employees to sign up, not just sign up, but actually use Curious after the launch to effectively learn and create a movement of learning. And then also leadership support in adoption and drumming in their communications, to support Curious. And I'm happy to share that despite a tumultuous year with the pandemic and social economic changes around us, we achieved 32% increase in learning places through Curious. And also as a result, because of more online learning, we reduced expenditure by about 20%. So I thought it's important for me to use that example, as a significant, initiative that we launched and, that we had to plan from evaluation all the way to outcomes.
Wow, Charlton, that is absolutely outstanding. Thank you for setting us up so well with your example. Some of the things Charlton said about the setting up, involving people, being totally focused on what we are trying to achieve, it is completely aligned with the methodology we will talk about today, which is the ROI methodology. So before we go on, it'll be important for us to know about you in the audience. How familiar are you with the ROI methodology? This is our second poll. Let's understand where the room is at. Okay, excellent. We see a mix. I am very excited to see some people are very familiar with it. Please, we must connect. Some of you are familiar, some are somewhat, and some of us are hearing about it for the first time. Not to worry, let's get right to explaining what this is. So basically, the ROI method began in 1973 when Dr. Jack Phillips was asked to show the ROI of his programs. He was in Lockheed Martin. He went and researched work done by two people, Ray Katzel and Ron Kirkpatrick. I think many of you are familiar with Kirkpatrick's 4 levels. With permission, Jack used that work to develop the Phillips ROI methodology. Now, the Institute has been around for a while and the work has been tested in the field for 50 years. Dr. Patty Phillips is the CEO. And what they do is they evolve the method based on actual applications and learning. Around the world, we are present in more than 70 countries, and we have thousands of cases every year. So even if some of us are meeting it for the first time, please know that there are other people who are walking this path right with us. Okay, the process ROI uses has 12 very simple steps. And in our time today, we cannot go in depth into that, but we can definitely see the highlights. So we will zoom in and zoom right back out. There are 4 phases that I'll quickly show you, just so you're aware of what's coming up. The first phase is planning. Charlton mentioned how they planned. The second phase is understanding and collecting the relevant information. The third phase is analyzing the data, so we are able to look at what is business impact and what is ROI. And the final phase is to optimize our results, which is a very important phase of stakeholder building and also strategic recommendations. And today, as I said, we'll go in and out of this method. And the objective here is to go towards impact, towards measuring not just business impact, but also in some cases ROI. Now, let me show you some data. In front of you, there is a graph, there's a bar chart. This is actually a survey that was done by ATD and the ROI Institute a few years ago. They asked Fortune 100 CEOs what kind of data they wanted to see. And this is specific to learning development, etc., but that gives you an idea. 96% of the CEOs said they wanted to see business impact data from these programs. Only 8% had seen this. When the question was asked about ROI, 3 in 4 wanted to see ROI data, but only 4% had seen that. Now, this was a few years ago, and the study, to my knowledge, has not been updated. However, we do know that this gap is narrowing. A lot of people are involved in evidence-based work today. I would love now to go to Zhurong and ask this question. Zhurong, how are you experiencing this narrowing trend?
I guess first of all, we got to understand the driving forces is coming from our desire to create shareholder value. I think for as long as we are a listed company, for example, people expect companies to deliver that. So I think that's unavoidable and we have to understand. I mean, take for instance, we have this very popular Workday people management system that many companies are launching. And for example, if it costs about $200 per employee to roll out Workday, then what is the measurement to make sure there is an ROI beyond that soft, iffy part about, oh, it creates a positive employee experience? And I think to measure the ROI, then you should look at, for example, how much time did you really save for the employees and managers through Workday via a more seamless benefits module, via a more efficient and better performance management system, or even via a better hiring module that you may have in Workday, and translate that into dollars and cents by multiplying it against the average people cost, or what I call the average people operating expenditure. This way, you're able to justify to business leaders, to CEOs, to the Fortune 100 CEOs that you're saying, the ROI from a dollars and cents perspective. If I was to use an example from Twitter, we have this program called Flexible Work Program, where we allow and enable anyone to work anywhere in the world with or without a Twitter office. People may say, oh, Ron, that sounds fancy, but what is the ROI of a FWP program at Twitter? And we believe when we have when we have FWP, we open up ourselves to the talent pool worldwide. We are able to recruit in places that we would have never thought possible. Have talents come to Twitter's career page and express an interest if they never thought it would have been possible if we weren't this open. And this has reduced our need for hiring agencies, opened up our chances to recruit from what I call cheaper locations, and take advantage of labor cost arbitrage. And we don't even need to set up offices. We just need to have an entity if we want to hire in a specific location where we don't have an office today. And that would have a certain monetary offer, an ROI per se. So I hope that was helpful.
Wow, yes. Actually, thank you. That was incredibly helpful. I want to highlight a few things I heard from it. First is creating stakeholder value. The second is the idea of the kind of outcomes we've heard, actually, not just from your response, also from Charlton's, which is not just the dollars and cents, but also the brand, also the intangibles that are immeasurably important to our institutions. So yes, incredibly helpful. And let me just take that line and move ahead with our case, because even in our case, it looks like a simple case, but people are really asking for stakeholder value. It's a simple case. We don't need to know too much about it. To get us started, what I will tell you is this. It's a very big international retailer of home furnishing. It's present in more than 20 countries, and it has more than 40,000 employees. It's not a small outfit. Now, what they want to do is they have that idea that they will have better performance if only people were more engaged with their work and with each other. And they also understand what engagement looks like. They're quite clear about it. And in the central panel, you will see a few things such as my role, my team, etc., which is for your reference. And what I want you to take away from this is what we are looking at is a case that any one of us could have. This could be happening in our organizations. Nothing out of the ordinary. What is different, though? What is unusual is their leaders are saying, look, this will go to 40,000 people. Please, let's do proof of concept. Does it show value? Can you show us Could this deliver value for customer, for our own bottom line, and for our employees? So stakeholder value. And with this, I want to take a moment to consider what we are talking about here. And I'd love to invite here Mayank to talk about objective setting. Mayank, in this case, they're looking at customers and employees, and they're looking at financial metrics. How would you advise people to look at balancing the scope of the work that they do?
Yes, thanks, and really happy to have so many of our IHRP professionals taking part here, because I think it's a really important area. ROI. I think ROI helps HR position themselves as decision enablers within the organizations. So I think it's really something critical, and more of our stakeholders, as we saw in the slides earlier, are demanding this. But the challenge is certainly, I think there is HR is more than just business, and there is an important dimension around understanding the employee impact and experience. And I think this is the crux of the difficulty here, that we are trying to balance some of the kind of broader focus of some of these programs, which sometimes the businesses tend to take. So for example, in the example of Curious, for instance, which Charlton talked about, certainly I think you can measure the impact of Curious in different ways, right? You can, for example, a business might say that, oh, I'm going to measure it based on revenue per employee, right? So if you put in a Curious or any other training intervention, is that going to mean more revenue per employee? I think that's it's fair for the business to look at it as something that will have that eventual final impact. But at the same time, I think you also need to take a pragmatic approach as well sometimes. And sometimes the pragmatic approach is not to look so far ahead. And the pragmatic approach could be maybe looking at some increase in training, maybe increase in the employee net promoter score. That could be a little bit more, although narrow, but certainly something that helps build some of the ROI in the longer term. So I would say, yes, I think this is something the businesses would increasingly demand, a broader focus. But your challenge in the organization is really to get buy-in, identify what really is important, and provide some of those specific baby steps in order to get that ROI thinking going within the organization. So think pragmatic.
Thank you, Mayank. This is a really important point, and I really, really want to underline this idea. We are beginning with a case which is trying to do quite a few things, but this is normal. This is a program for all employees. And so how do we become pragmatic, as Mayank has said here? The way here that they're doing is for every function or team, they're going to pick only 2 or 3 metrics that they can focus on. So nobody here is trying to achieve everything, because pragmatism and realism is very important when we are measuring. Thank you very much, Mayank. Let's carry on with our case. I mentioned the ROI method. The method is held together by a very simple idea, which is called the chain of value or the chain of impact. We measure 6 kinds of data, 5 of which are outcome, and I'll give you a very quick story. Some of you are familiar with Kirkpatrick. This will be simple. And for others, you'll see it's actually a very sensible link that's put together. So imagine a project management platform has been set up. Level 1 is the reaction of people to how they perceive your program. A great reaction is this. A user will say, I love it. I love the platform. I'm going to use it. I intend to use it for sure. It saves me time. Level 2 is a user saying, I know how to do this. I'm able to use it. I know how to ask for help. I know how to work my way through this system. Level 3 is a user saying, or an employee saying, I use it all the time, all the time. Level 4 is the impact that happens because of the usage. And maybe now we are able to say that, hey, time to completion has fallen by half. That's great. And level 5, if we have built up our link correctly, is us being able to say, you know, we spent $1 million, we got back more than 1.2 million. This is the link. Please, as we go on from here, to remember that our task as designers or measurement evaluators is to keep this link intact. That's what we're going to do using our 12 steps. I want to very quickly ask you, because today we are going to level 4 and level 5, I want to ask you very quickly, generally speaking, where do you measure today? So this is our third poll. Okay, I can see quite a nice spread. Okay, great. Great. I think we have an idea. So very, very quickly, those of us that are measuring to ROI, how wonderful. Many of you are measuring to level 4 impact. That's excellent, excellent. We do recommend about 10 to 20% of programs are measured to level 4. Now, level 1 and level 2, great. It's really important to do it. Why? Because this is the thing we use to change things quickly, especially as we are moving faster and faster, getting data quicker and changing things quicker. This is the power we get. And application, it's such an important thing to measure when we can. We at the Institute will say that 30% of your program should be measured to application. What do we really get out of it? What's working? What's not working? How do we really handle implementation? So in our program today, we are going with our case to see how to do this. And we're in our first phase. I want to say this, it's a planning phase, but just let's get one important thing out of this. In this phase, what we need to do is that chain of impact, unbroken link, a clear business alignment. And always, always, starting with why is the first step in the ROI methodology. In our example, we'll begin at level 5. And in our example, it looks a bit like this. It's still vague, but we can have better performance. If we can do that, the business needs or the metrics, we can change our employee engagement, customer, and financial metrics. Okay, for us to do that, actually, people have to be slightly different. So we are talking level 3 performance. What do they need to be? Well, they need to be more engaged with work and customers. That begs the question, well, what do they need to know? What do they need to be able to do? Level 2, of course, they need to know what it means to be more engaged, and they must know how to be more engaged. How do they live it? Finally, we ask the question, as we roll out, how do we want people to think about this program, feel about it? And they say here, we really want them to see this is relevant, important, useful. Who is it for? It's for everybody. Let's carry on. When we build this, we are building now, I'm going to show you a very quick model, but we will not deep dive into this. We start with the why. We go to the second step, which is the objective setting and making sure we are doing the right solution. I'll only point to 2 things here. One, in our case, they've set an objective of 20% or more ROI. Second is they have identified a series of business metrics. I have some examples here. Please have a look at that. But we are getting very clear. Now let's go to the third step. And in the third step, we are crystal clear about who's going to do what and exactly how will it be measured when. Okay, I'm going to step back and make 2 main points on this. What you're looking at is the alignment, business alignment model. We have taken a statement which began with, if only people are engaged, we would have better performance. And we have translated it to completely business aligned, well articulated with metrics, plan for how we will design and run our program. It's not just measurement, it's also how our program is going to work. That's the first takeaway. The second thing, just FYI, if you had a chance to see the handout that was sent out last evening, you will find this in that. And I would love to see all of you use it. I think you'd quite enjoy it to apply to some of your work. That's it. I really want to talk about alignment because this is something we always begin with. All programs begin with a business need, but over time, some of these are just diluted. So let's go back to Jurong. I want to ask this question: what's going on, and what can be done to maintain that?
Okay, thanks for asking. And I think in order to do that, to make sure HR folks keeps our program aligned with business strategy in time and all the time, it is important that we keep our fingers close to the pulse of the business. I often share this. I mean, when was the last time we tuned into our company's quarterly investors relations call, if there was one? Did you go hear about what the investment bankers are posing as difficult questions to your CEOs? Tune into those calls, even, or in fact, if you're interested in, I don't know, Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley, tune to their quarterly investment calls. From those forums, you will understand what they are asking, what they really care most about. And then as HR leaders, if you do know how your company monetizes, how your company is performing, then you'll always be able to make sure your programs are aligned to business strategy. Say, for instance, an example, if my company wants to, let's say, opens up an office in Bangkok tomorrow because of the potential revenue that we could make having a platform and advertising business in Thailand, then what do we need from a HR's perspective? Can we start looking into the talent landscape over there? Who are our competitors? What is the salary benchmarks? Or what is the optimal structure and entity we should have? And by doing so, then you're proactively making sure your programs, your HR initiatives are aligned with the business strategy, which is to open up and have a presence in Thailand. So I think that would be key, making sure and always remember how a company makes money, how it monetizes, what is the quarter-to-date revenue, what Wall Street cares most about your company, and translating that into your HR strategy. I'll end by saying we are business partners. The P stands for partners and not pleasers. So try not to say yes to your business all the time, because should they just want a pleaser, they could hire anyone. But if they want a partner, this is where HR professionals comes in.
Thank you. Thank you. And I love that business partners, not business pleasers. This is, I'm hearing it for the first time, and I think it's such a great point in keeping alignment. And in fact, as we go more into this, we recognize how partnership is built. And in our case, we are going now into the second phase. And I want to emphasize this idea of partnership. When we launch a program, we launch it with great business ideas. We are totally connected. In my experience, and yours could be different, in my experience, after launch, business goes one direction. The implementation team is running different direction. Not always, sometimes. When we look at it in terms of common outcomes, we create a continued forum for discussing and aligning. So this brings us to our case and the second phase. In the second phase, we are starting to implement the program. As we implement, we are starting to see data. In particular, the data is showing us outcome. What outcome? First, intention. Second, ability. Third, application. Fourth, impact. And I will show you some of it. But first, how do we collect the data? So what we're showing you here is an actual survey done of global ROI practitioners last year. To the left, surveys all the way through focus groups are all the instruments that we use depending on what's required for a case. To the right is how frequently these are used. It should be no surprise that surveys and questionnaires are very commonly used. They're simple to create. And of course, you have to design them correctly. They're simple to create. However, do note we use them all. What about our case? What did they use? They use surveys and questionnaires for level 1, level 2, level 3. They use databases, which is where they went into the outcomes, sales, profit, cost, etc., directly from the company system. They used action plans. Action plans are what drove the behaviors as people went back to work. And they used observations. When did they use observation? Well, level 2, to see if people understood the skills required. that's been used. And I'm going to show you the data. As I do, I will remind you of what we were looking for. Imagine now, as you see the data, that you are running this and you have the ability to go to your stakeholders and share your advice and what the data shows. So let's imagine what that looks like. First of all, we are looking here at 4 kinds of data: level 1, 2, 3, and I will say this, for level 4 on this slide, we are only showing you 1 because we have more work to do later, which we'll get to. Let's look at level 1. In level 1, we are looking purely for intention. This is predictive. We've just launched. Will it work? Did we hit the note right? Is it relevant? And what we are looking for, I really want you to pay close attention to the questions that have been asked. They're really all around the importance, relevance. I will use it. And action planning is valuable. A bar is set on a 5-point scale, and the bar is 4, which means that we will see if these hit 4, what happens. Okay, let's look at it. The red line is the bar at 4. The blue lines are what people said, and I will tell you clearly we can see the vast majority of the questions cross the threshold of 4, which is wonderful news. People are very willing to use the content. If I'm the designer evaluator, I'm happy to see this result. A couple of things: user-friendly technology is slightly below 4, as is easy to follow, but they're not so below that there should be cause for alarm. So I'm looking at it as an evaluator or a program designer or even somebody in the business. I'm saying, I think this is a good indication of how people want to use this culture change program. Okay, good. But we still have to know, could they do it? People say things, people mean things, but could they do it? So let's look at learning. Learning was judged by capability survey that people did themselves and by skills observation. And once again, on a 5-point scale, people said they were very comfortable on at least 5 of the 7. Look at things like, I understand my role, I'm very clear about what I need to do. My team, very clear. 2 things, slightly below 4. One is my leadership, and the second is my community. This is not surprising. Why? My leadership is a question for all people. All people are not leaders. And it's slightly abstract, so not surprising. And my community is a little bit more abstract, and so it's not unexpected that this is slightly below. Once again, I'm looking at it and I'm saying, okay, I'm not alarmed. I'm quite comfortable with the learning outcomes I'm seeing. And by the way, in skills observation, everybody's made the cut. So reactions looking positive, learning's looking positive. What about application? So watch with me the application, and I'm going to show you 3 data points very, very quickly and emphasize on which ones are really important. We'll look for 3 things. How often, or what % of the teams participating in this are completing their action plan? Second, we are going to look to see, well, we asked the manager to be a coach. Are people really using the manager as a coach? There is no target for this. The third is we have an engagement portals to encourage people to use it and to follow the culture change methods, etc. Is it being used? Let me show you the data. And let's start to the right, the use of engagement portal. It was found about 60% of the time it's being used. Since there is no target, this is, we don't know if it's a hit or a miss, but we know that it's being used and maybe there is an opportunity for it to be better. Something as an evaluator or as a program designer you could look into. What about manager coaching? The manager is being used as a coach only half the times. Once again, a design question or a concept question arises about this, but the really important heartening thing to see here is the completion of action plan. The action plans that the teams have decided are actually quite detailed. And what we found 2-3 months into this is that 82% of them have completed their action plans, and this is considered to be very good. Now we have reaction, we have learning, and we have some application data that's looking quite positive. And I will only show you 1 engagement data here before just stopping for a reflection moment. We started with engagement. All of this, in part, is also to raise engagement of people. So the pre-survey baseline engagement was 3.6. Post-survey, it was about 4.5. And so we can see that at least one of our level 4 measures has shifted. at this point, I want to change a bit the discussion. And I want to bring Calvin into this by asking this. This program is doing pretty well. If you're implementing, you and I are implementing this, we're seeing that the metrics are trending well. But it's really critical to have people involvement. People are doing the work. If people don't do the work, there is no impact. So Calvin, what's your recommendation of how do we always or continue to involve employees and business in our programs?
Very, very interesting question. I would, because I've always worked with the SME, so I will take it from the point of a SMEs. If you come to realize that SME is a bit different from MNC, they are tighter, they are more lean compared to MNCs. Likely, but not all, some of the HR in SME, they will be very much double-heading or sometimes busy handling the always changing mindsets or direction of their bosses. It's a fact. All right. Why? Because SME is being lean. The bosses will see things and change things along the way. So during my consultancy work, I have clients who actually I need to sit them down and ask the bosses, what do you have in mind 3 years down the road? In the past, I'll ask for 10 years. Now, because of COVID, nothing is for sure. So we'll ask for 3 years, and then we'll divide it into two sets. One is if there's no COVID, if COVID continues on. So what's your plan like? Bring them down and ask them what's their exit plan? What do they intend to do? Are you going to continue on working for next 3 years? So one of my clients who has a HR exec, also double head as the boss's PA, they are in the retail industry with 40 staff and 5 outlets. So they have various culture issues. So they did a culture change. So the first thing to talk about engaging the people is to let the people know what does the boss want? What do they want at the end of the road? So how do we actually do that? Well, I actually help the bosses to actually redefine or relook into their value, mission, and core value. That will help them to get to their 3 years end goal. All right, lock them in. But I just don't do the VMC, the value, mission, core value, just that. We take it a few steps further by providing explanation of the keywords. Thereafter, develop a competency dictionary based on the VMCs. This competency dictionary will include a set of behavior for each of the job title with a scaling of 1 to 10. And then with that, we transport it to a coaching checklist with input from, like what we as earlier mentioned, mystery shopping audit, customer feedback, as well as the service, as well as the supervisors and managers who are involved. With that, we train the managers and supervisors to become performance coaches and learn how to use the coaching checklist to coach their staff. And if you were to realize that if we are coaching them based on the VMCs that's been created, or in fact with the set of behavior they are supposed to achieve, we are actually reaching the end goal of what the bosses want. So we are actually rolling the dragon boat all at one shot, using the same stroke, getting to the end goal. Well, but before we actually start the coaching session, we will actually release results from the Ministry Audit, Customer Satisfaction Survey to the staff through workshops. And during the workshop, we also be sharing with the staff about the redefined VMCs and the launch of coaching session, getting them to know that be ready, get them to have the buy-in, get them to be ready through the workshop, and everybody is involved. Then after that, numbers of training sessions will be involved as well for the staff so that they will be aligned to the VMCs. Every quarter, another round of visual audit to assess whether if they are in alignment, and thereafter share with them. Carrot and sticks, those who have done well will be rewarded. And some of the things that we do is certificate of achievement, shopping voucher. Take note, ours is a SME, so it's a very small build-up or a small outfit. And then of course, they'll be featured in newsletter or send out the emails, send by emails to all the staff about who has done well and so on.
Thank you, Calvin. This is a really interesting perspective. I really appreciate that you shared it. So some of the things I'm taking away, even though Calvin's example comes from SME, I do think it's relevant in bigger organizations as well. Communication, the involvement of leadership, and maybe the idea of ongoing communication, which really can aid how we achieve our results. Thank you so much, Kelvin, for sharing that perspective. And that takes us to our case of how we continue to communicate and engage with our people. Look, we have a commitment to show ROI and impact, and we must get to it. It's very simple. And I'll very quickly show you the 2 steps that will take us from outcomes to dollar value. And I'll show you the results that came, but I will not go into detail because each of these topics takes a little longer to do. So we can always follow up another time, but I will show you exactly the 2 steps we need to do. Do bear in mind, at this stage, the most important thing is to keep the communication going and stay very credible in the methods that we use, because we are working with a lot of interesting data. And of course, more important than that, we're working with people. So first off, when we convert metrics to money, in our case, there are quite a few. I'll give you only one example. Let's zone in. Customer complaint. One team is focusing on reducing complaints. The value of this is considered to be $500. That means if you reduce one complaint, you save $500. And we have this data from Customer Care Center. Why from them? Because the institution believes, the organization believes that is the most credible source of data. So the first step when we look at our outcome data and we want to report ROI is to convert not just 5 reduced complaints, but that much money. First step. The second step is isolation. Isolation is a very important principle in the ROI method. It's very important to us. There are multiple ways to do it, and this is a survey of how we use it. I want to show you that the control group is our preferred method, following which is trendline analysis. So in a control group, it's one group which is kind of like another. One goes through the program, one does not, and we compare. In trendline, it's really looking at data before, after, and having a benchmark for comparison, and increasingly modeling, mathematical modeling as analytics come into play. In this case, we are using participant estimates, why so? Because we cannot control group. Different people are going after different objectives. And so I'll very quickly show you what it looks like. So if somebody says that based on the outcome data in the system, there is a cost saving of $20,000, $21,000 because of fewer complaints, they tell us that there are at least 2 other factors, not just the culture change program, but 2 other factors that affected this outcome, which made things better. First question, what's your attribution? What percent of this do you give to this program, culture change? And they said 40. Then we ask a second question to reduce error. This is also a guiding principle. And the second question is, what's your confidence in this? And they said 70%, which means we can only take with confidence 28% of the 20,000, which is just under 6,000. That's the way a participant estimation works. When you're in the workshop with us or a boot camp or an actual certification, we will talk about this at length. Now, what is the benefit they found? They found that for this group of people, all added in, isolated benefits about $1.4 million. What about the cost? The cost is about $444,000. Okay, let's put it together for basic math. The ROI of this program is 212%. One takeaway, this is more than our target of 20%. That's good news. And finally, intangibles. Intangibles are what we cannot convert to money. And intangibles here are seen as the teamwork, NPS, career satisfaction, etc. We have reported a lot of important things. And if stakeholders want to dig into the numbers, we are backed by sound logic and great data. This is where we are, which takes us to the final step. And this is the moment we build strategic connections. Now, when we have a program, we know the evidence, we are in a position to talk about what are the next steps? How should process be improved? How does it align with strategy? What is the content element? What about barriers that are happening in our workplace? How can we make coaching better? How can we enthuse people better, etc.? This is the moment that we use all of this to really build our consultative, strategic recommendations with our business stakeholders. I'm going to just stop there. This is a poll, but we don't have time for it, so I really would like to skip. Towards the end, I want to show you something that we heard from our constituents, so ROI professionals around the world. When asked, what are the benefits to you of using the method? They came back with this. Number one reason they found was they do this because they have better business alignment, they can get better budget, they can justify better budgets, and they improve process. And I'll point out a couple of things that are very important. Improved relations and improved image. Satisfaction of my team, critically important. Now, we are almost at the end, and I would love to invite Tanny to this and ask this question, Tanny. If we forget ROI methodology for a moment and just simply go to the idea of evidence, what do you see as the value to HR professionals of showing evidence?
Yeah, thank you, Dita. Really nice stuff that you've shared with us. So I would say that the evidence-based practice can help create the effective practices in many HR areas, for example, impacting performance, hiring, compensation, change management, etc. However, if I look at HR professionals, what kind of benefit we can get from the evidence-based practice, I would say that there are a few. The first will be more informed and effective decision-making. And I believe Mayang spoke a little bit about that earlier. With data, we can see the root cause of an issue, and thereby targeted solutions can be created to solve that people issue. And the second one I can think of is really to align human capital practices with strategic goals of an organization. So every company has strategic goals and targets. However, if we are able to use evidence to prove how human resources practices can help support that goal, that will be one benefit that I can see will help increase the value of the organization. Next I can think of is really the HR policy and practices can be based upon what really works versus what we think it may work, because it's evidence-based, isn't it? And then with that, it will improve the credibility of our HR discipline, our HR professionals, and thereby creating that trust amongst the business leaders to the HR function. So in a nutshell, I would say those are the few key benefits HR could reap if we use evidence-based.
Great, Tanny, thank you so much. So I just love how you took this topic and took it to a totally different level of the strategic thinking behind it. Thinking about root cause, thinking about risks, thinking beyond just getting something done. If I were to say, based on all what I've heard from you, all of you this moment, is as we are looking at this as the ROI methodology, what we're really talking about is the role of human capital in the bigger organization. And I'm really heartened to see the kind of things that all of you've shared. And I think we are pretty much at a point where more content will take a few more hours. So my suggestion would be, Karina, from our point of view, perhaps we could move on and take questions or open up the panel. So I leave this to you.
Hi, thanks, Anindita. Really great sharing. I'm hearing from everyone. I've been taking down some notes. I think some of our panelists have been quite diligent with trying to answer questions as well. But I think even though I think, Charlton, you have responded to Sriram's question, I'd like to sort of resurface that to also open it up to the rest of the panelists. So, just so that I can get everyone's, to remember Sriram's question. He asked a question related to non-numerical aspects. I think we heard Dita and Zurong, you mentioned dollars and cents, right? That's what our key business leaders and shareholders want to hear. But, being that we're in HR, we cannot run away from the fact that there's actually a lot of intangible sort of ROIs that, we can reflect as we build our business case. And even better, if we can find proxies to translate them into dollars and cents. So I guess maybe if I can, open it up to the rest of the panelists and even yourself, Dita. Can you share a little bit about, what you've seen in your organization or for your clients, Kelvin and Dita? How have people been able to identify, define the non-numerical aspects and potentially even to quantify them?
Yeah, Karina, the question first of all was posed to me. So maybe I start by saying some things in addition to what I said, and then, give time to the rest of my panelists, co-panelists to talk about their thoughts as well. Good. And I know the topic when it comes to culture transformation, right, is abstract stuff. Is always difficult to measure. It is a journey, okay? But importantly, right, it is what do you have in mind that will be kind of the optimized a way of life or culture of the company, right, in X timing, right? And I think that if you look at the whole journey in a more agile way and break it down into pieces, because we know that, culture doesn't just change overnight. It's the incremental pieces that you keep moving and pushing the boundaries, right? That ultimately will get to where you want to be. For example, first of all, we break it down here, into here meaning Singtel. We look at it in this way. Leadership, right? First of all, leadership is really important because they had to role model the right behaviors, right? And, we have been launching various, leadership programs over the years. However, they were not so sort of, standardized into a common program. And so, going forward, we will be launching this thing called Purpose-Led Leadership Program. And actually the acronym is ACE. ACE because it's leading with accountability, C, leading change, and E, leading with empathy, right? And can we measure it? Yes, right? Because we know we have X number of the leaders, right? Within Singtel is about 2,000 that we're going after out of 25,000. So it's about 10%. And ensuring that they actually go through the program. And, there is a coaching piece behind to ensure that they actually apply what they learned. And they will even, send out some questionnaire to ask their own direct teams for feedback about how they have done. The other thing is, I think process can certainly, support or hurt, right? The culture. For example, even in HR here, right? We actually, as an SLT, we discuss, and then we separately also work with our teams to identify what are the processes that we want to kill or stop, right? And then what are those that we want to continue because they are good, we want to do more, and what are those new ones that we want to start? So proactively, we have put that in place. That will have ultimately an impact on people's views when it comes to your annual climate survey, which will ask questions around, process and structures as well. That in itself can be a measurement. How many processes you kill, how does your employment engagement improve after that? So I'll stop here. There's many things I can continue, but I don't want to, kind of steal the time of the other panelists. I hand over to you.
Hey, Karina, can I jump in on this culture topic? As you know, I worked, a bit of cultural change within UPS. So, how it is difficult to break down the cultural aspect into measurable, elements. But I would like to define a little bit on culture because it is such a broad word. Culture to me is a set of collective behaviors of individuals. And to be more specific, it's a dynamic system of learned and shared beliefs that generate an explained behavior. So you can imagine it's a collective group of behaviors that we're talking about. So within UPS, we kind of set, what kind of behavior that we want our leaders and our employees to demonstrate. And that is to be agile, to be empowered, and to be innovative. So, and that is really tied into the overall company's goal of wanting to be to increase market share, et cetera, as all businesses are trying to do. So in terms of measurement, that's where we start to look at behaviors of our leaders, and we ask individuals to rate the leaders in terms of how they demonstrate those 3 people traits that I just mentioned in their daily leadership behavior. So it is through feedback, and we record it down. And through that, then we are able to tell if a leader is really demonstrating those 3 people traits. So it's behavioral demonstration feedback. At the end of the day, we also look at, every leader, they have P&L to manage. And because of that change behavior, that translates then to either increase in market share, increase in P&L, reducing costs, etc. Of course, in between, there are lots of measurement, lots of activities that's going on. But I'm just trying to cut it short to explain to you that we need to define what it is, what we are trying to measure, how we want to see that's coming, and then we hold people accountable through all these trackers and tools. So I hope that answers the question.
Great. Thanks so much, Tanny. Anything else anybody would like to add?
I would like to,
Sure,
if I
Deeta.
may. So I think the question, just to answer, Shriram, from a methodology point of view, intangibles are exceptionally important. And you will recall that the ROI methodology is balanced, which means we do report not just dollars and cents, we always report intangibles. And we have a way of judging what outcome should be converted and what is better reported as intangible. So please do know that it's deeply valued. And in fact, there may even be studies that tend to report intangibles. That said, I completely align with everybody here, which is just because something is intangible does not mean that we cannot see metric changes in it. We absolutely can. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
No, thanks so much. I think, a follow-up question to that, since Deeta, you've shared, is I noticed when we ran the poll to find out from the audience, where they were in terms of that, the levels, right, which is akin to almost the Kirkpatrick's levels. The majority indicated that they were at learning, which means that, there's level 3, 4, and 5 that people were at various stages of maturity in terms of being able to adopt and apply. So given the work that you do with ROI Institute and so on, what challenges do you see out there with your clients trying to evolve and apply higher levels of measurement? And can you share maybe some considerations or to the audience, and the rest of the panels, please feel free to chime in as well after Deeta shares.
Okay. Wow, big question. It's a really important question. So I think, Karina, the data we saw is not at all unexpected, because level 1, level 2 is something which can be much more in control of the people that are running or establishing a program. When we look at level 3, actually, that's when the engagement of other people needs to come in, because this is application. And oftentimes when we design our programs, we design it for the delivery, but we may not have a design for what will happen afterwards. What is the role of the manager, which should, in big important programs, it's important. What is the role of coaching, if necessary? What kind of aids should be there? So to address the issue of level 3 measurement, I think we must understand, how do we engage people? Now, from the question of how often should we measure level 3, we'll say if you have thousands of programs, about 30% of them you should look at application. When it comes to level 4, level 5, let's get very clear. You must plan for it upfront. And to show level 4, level 5, by our own guiding principles, we have to show level 1, 2, and 3. It has to be done. Otherwise, you don't have a chain that we have to show. So I would say there, please, I would recommend to people, use the toolkit. We actually teach people the methodology. Use the toolkit. What we find is as people get more comfortable with using it, it's also a bit of a change management problem. So as people get more comfortable with using it and they're able to take the data back, they use it more. It becomes more relevant to them. So my ideas to this question would be very normal. One, if level 3, engage stakeholders and plan for what happens after. If level 4, of course, plan ahead. And level 5 is very simple to derive if you have level 4. It's just math.
Okay. Thanks. I think it's reassuring to know that, we don't expect 100% of our programs to be measured all the way up to the top, right? Because I think it really a time and place for it. So thanks for that. Any add-ins from the rest of the panel? Okay, if no questions, I'm just wondering, Deeta, you guide me. There was a question by Joshua here for you to maybe take a look at the ROI methodology slide again. And I don't know whether you could quickly maybe, look at the V curve. I think that's the slide.
I see Joshua's question. Yes. Okay, Joshua, how much time do we have? For us to do it well, we'll need about 5 minutes. Do we have that kind of time?
We might be bit tight on that. I think,
Okay, so Joshua, can I make you a suggestion? What if, as a follow-up of this, we send you that slide, or we send out that slide with details and how we get to it? Is that something we can look at? Because I think in 1 minute I cannot do justice to
yeah, that would be a challenge. Exactly.
It's a great question, and it's the basis. I would love for you to see it in detail. And actually, I'll open this up to anybody who wants to have a discussion about this. Yes, of course, you're always welcome to reach out and ask. We'll be happy to talk to you about how this was done as well. Not an issue.
Sure. Yeah, I am mindful that we're standing between everyone and lunch at the moment. So I guess, if we could maybe work to final closing thoughts, Dita or any of the panelists would like to share really quick 30 seconds of sharing about how can you, some words of wisdom that you want to leave for the HR community as we together embark on this, approach, because this is not something, that's very probably prevalent and common in HR, but we want to get there. We want to shift that mindset and that learning there.
Maybe I'll start, Karina.
Sure.
So, at the beginning, it may seem very daunting to do, HR people practices, and then how does it convert into ROI, and even dollars and cents. I think more importantly is to really understand the business, talk to the business leaders exactly what do they need from a people standpoint in order to meet their objective. Because once you understand their objective, because we are HR professionals, we know our stuff. So once we hear exactly what our business partners are looking for, then we can do that alignment in terms of what can we do from a people practices standpoint to support them, and what kind of consultation can we advise them, and then work together to come up with the measurements that we have been talking about. I think that will be something more assuring that can be done rather than looking at a big ROI. It will seem impossible. So I will give that advice to everybody.
So to break it down and really just have that candid conversation with your business leaders. Great.
Can I share?
Sure.
All right. Once again, standing upon the SME viewpoint, while doing all these things, we realized that there are 4 points that we always get from the business owner saying that I want my people to be like that. So what are the 4 points? And whenever they say, they will tell the HR, say, I want to employ people with this mindset. So I have more or less done up a research, and then these are the major 4 points whenever they want to employ somebody. The first point is, whenever I want to employ people, importantly, they must be able to treat the business like your own. Then you will feel the pinch. Point number 2, be a multitasker. Gone are the days that we say this is not my job. Be a team player. We do it for the organization, not for personal glory. Last point, when task A is given, try first. Don't say no. When task A is given, B, C, D are done. So these are the major 4 points when we talk to the bosses. Yeah, I want people to be like that so that I can create such a culture that, when they do things, they really do it for the business. Now my question throwback, if we are looking for this group of people, then as HR, are we as such? Can we treat the business like our own so that whenever we make any decisions, is this really our own business? We should feel the pinch if we do it wrongly. How am I going to create that ROI if I have to run the program? Like, this is my own business. So these are some of the things that I would like to share.
Thanks very much, Kelvin.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Anybody else would like to share? We've got maybe another minute or two left. Charlton?
I would think that, the way we think, right, has a lot to do with, apart from nature, has a lot to do with nurture as well, right? Our experience, what was taught to us, and so on. And, it's natural for us to think in a certain way. Like, for example, when people say, the abstract stuff, intangibles, and so on, we kind of straight away feel that, hey, oh dear, what do I do? How do I measure? And these kind of things. But I think, if we try and open our mindset, our horizon, actually that's going to open our potential as well. Discussions like this, for example, right, will bring ideas to your mind, and you can certainly share with others as so unlock, don't limit yourself, unlock your mindset, your horizon, and your thinking sphere, and that will unlock your potential. There are always ways to solve issues, is what I'll say.
Great, thanks, Charlton. Any last words from Zhurong or Mayank?
Maybe I'll go next, and really very interesting discussion. I think really the aspect of intangibles can if you're able to provide the businesses with a measure of those intangibles, it can really transform this traditional role that and perception that businesses have of HR. And so I think I would encourage every HR professional out there to challenge yourself. And it may be difficult, as we heard, culture is such a nebulous and difficult to define term. But if you distill that to behaviors, you distill that to processes within your organization, then it's something doable, it's something measurable. So I think that's how I would encourage our professionals to think about intangibles and think about ROI in general. Because if you do it right, I think it can really be a game changer for you within the organization.
Yeah, thank you, Mayank. And Zhurong?
I'll just add by saying, don't walk away feeling so daunted by, wow, I got to now start reading financial statements, understand terms and like operating income and whatnot, which I may not be good at or sign up for. I think start small. Just reach out to your CFO or your finance head and ask if they are able to be your mentor or to walk you through some simpler terms first. I remember during my days working with Unilever and Mondelez, I asked the modern trade director to, hey, can you bring me to NTUC Fair Price and explain to me the pricing strategy, the mix, and why we market and sell in a certain way. And through those experiences, I learned and picked up some commercial acumen along the way. I also have a finance mentor, the CFO of Mondelez, who mentored me for years, and in fact until today he would guide me and walk me through how to read, for example, a financial statement of Twitter when we launch our quarterly results. Keep that relationship with finance warm. They could be your strategic ally at work, and when HR and finance come together, I think we can be very powerful in any institution.
Wow, great. Thank you, Zhurong. I think, in interest of time, maybe I'll pass it back to Dita to maybe share some final key highlights that you want to leave with the audience, and then we can kind of move on to the wrap-up side.
Perfect. We're almost at the end. Thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate everybody's time, and I really want to say from Aartha's point of view, my colleagues Clay and Karen, and from ROI Institute, we're grateful you made time for us. I would love all of you to take one thing away from this today. The ROI methodology is a very simple toolkit. As people have said, when we look at these questions, they seem big, but once we have a simple toolkit, it is no longer difficult. That's what I'd like you to know about it. It's simple. Thousands of people use it. And step by step, you will see how it helps us change the game, as Mayank said. It does help change the game. We know it. We've seen it globally with our partners and clients. Now, we coach people, we teach people, and we consult. But what I want to show today is something that we want to offer to only IHRP members, and that's the very first live virtual bootcamp. A bootcamp is a 5-hour session for people interested in really understanding what the 12 steps are. Bring your ideas, bring your questions, and we say it's May 7th. Please note it gives you 5 hours, not just for of course, for IHRP, but also for SHRM and ATD. And it costs for IHRP members $269. It's open to the public actually globally, but for IHRP, it's only available in Singapore through IHRP. Of course, there is no GST. And if you're working in an institution and there are 3 or more of you, then of course there is a discount. So I just wanted you to know that we are launching this. With that, Karina, I just want to thank everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We can flash the last slide, which is the QR code. As you know, with all our webinars, we would love to hear from you. And if you do want to, directly contact Aartha's team, do indicate and leave your email in the feedback form so that we can connect them directly to you. I like to echo Dita's, thanks to everybody, all of you in the audience. I think we had about 290 of you dial in. Love to thank all the panelists, Charlton, Zurong, Kelvin, Mang, and Tanny, and of course, the wonderful partnership with Aartha and the ROI Institute, Anindita, Clay, and Karen. Thank you very much. And hopefully this is not the last time we will co-partner on this program together. And we look forward to bringing more sharing to our IHRP community. With that, this is really, I want to bid all of you a wonderful, restful Easter weekend and have a great lunch. Thank you so much.